Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today I'm going to talk about the Corsair HS65, both the wireless and the wired version. Now, these were sent to me for review, but interestingly enough, they were sent by different people, different companies. So the wired version was sent to me by Corsair, thank you for that, and the HS65 wireless was sent to me from another company called SonarWorks, which makes an algorithm audio feature called SoundID. So I'll be talking about that in this review because it's relevant to adjusting the audio of these. So I just want to get that out of the way. It won't affect what I say about this stuff. If you've watched the channel, you know that I am not that type of person. I'm always open and honest. So with that being said, let's dive in. Now the HS65 comes in two price points. For MSRP of $70, you get the wired version, which comes with this USB dongle. It's USB-A, relatively short, and it has the 3.5 millimeter combo jack on it. This does work on PlayStation, no problem. Or you can fall back to the auxiliary cable if you're plugging into a controller. So technically that one can also work on Xbox if you're just willing to plug into that. The HS65 retails for $120, has a 24-hour battery life, a 37-hour battery life if you're just using Bluetooth, and it too works wirelessly on PlayStation, but also wirelessly on PC, while also adding the Bluetooth function. Now the Bluetooth function does not work simultaneously with wireless. Most affordable, budget, entry-level wireless headsets with Bluetooth don't have simultaneous Bluetooth to where you can listen to both audio streams at the same time. You can be simultaneously paired to your phone while also playing wirelessly on PC or console, and then when you get a call, you can hit the button. There's a little action button on the headset, and that'll switch over. So I just wanted to get those few points out of the way. Now, as a quick note, switching gears, the channel's grown a lot. I can't thank you enough for the support. If you decide that by watching this video you like the content, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'd love to see you around in future videos. And with that being said, I actually started a Discord server, so I have a link in the description below. It's full of people who like audio, gaming, hi-fi, and audiophile stuff, and we're slowly expanding the reach of that. So if you're interested to talk more, either subscribe and take a look at the channel's future content, join Discord, talk to us there, or do both, because I appreciate the support and engagement. I love hanging out and talking to everyone online. So yeah, let's get back to it. Now, I try to be as honest and open as I can with my reviews, and the reason why this review got delayed, I made a post in my community section, is I had a really odd behavior like the first couple days of testing. For some reason, my computer crashed when I loaded Warzone. Now, I'd been using this headset for like half hour, 45 minutes, and I know saying a computer crash when you play Warzone is nothing new for a lot of people out there, but I never had it crash the way it did. It full on locked up and just instantly shut itself off. Really odd behavior. My computer hadn't done that before. I chalked it up as a Warzone thing, and I started playing, and it went fine that night. Now, I moved this dongle to my PlayStation 5, and after about half an hour of gaming, I load up a game on Gran Turismo. My PlayStation completely shut off, like didn't freeze, just went dead. And then I had to do a full restore to make it work again. The only common denominator was my transmitter was plugged in. I was really nervous this was like nuking my equipment. Now, I used it for another 20 to 30 hours of gaming on both platforms since that happened. Never had an issue again. It could have been a really rare coincidence, which it's likely the case because it didn't keep happening. But because it happened and this was plugged in, I just have to say it. I don't know if that's going to happen down the road anymore. I don't know if other people will experience it, but I don't want to keep that from you because that did happen to me. Again, just could be bad luck. Now, a lot of this stuff will be the same between both models, but I do want to cover a few things that separate them as we go. So on the wireless side, I mentioned the battery life being 24 hours. You can do a 15-minute charge to get you 6 hours of game time. So if your headset is dead, you can always do a quick charge. It does charge and work wirelessly at the same time. So if you're concerned with that, you're good to go there. It does not function as a USB-C headset. If you want that function and you don't want to use wireless at all, use the Corsair HS80, for example. That one has wireless and a USB cable fallback connection. So there's one thing I want to point out, and I started doing this just in my last review. I'm going to call it the toilet test. Basically, how far does the headset go? Does it work well between walls if you leave the room? Because some people want to go grab a snack. You don't necessarily take the headset off because you're talking to your buddy. It kind of sucks, like, hey, I'll be right back, when you could have just been chatting. So the wireless performance on this, I thought the Plantronics Rig 800 was going to set the benchmark at this price point. Some way, somehow, this worked even better than that. I got almost 70 feet before it had any signs of audio cutouts. Now that's in my room, my house with the Wi-Fi that I'm using, or the wireless network, if you will. So that can change depending on where you live. However, 70 feet and going through walls is nuts. And it was rock solid. I was listening to music, no problem on it. So it passes the toilet test. You are free to roam about your home. So let's talk about build quality and comfort, because there'll be a lot of similarities between the two, obviously one being wired, but that doesn't impact how these feel. They are very lightweight. This weighs under 300 grams, even on the wireless version. You have an aluminum or a metal headband, and this is made of plastic and metal. There's a mix of materials here, but overall it feels really solid. It passes the twist test if you're concerned about that. And unlike the HS80, because this has an expanding yoke, it can fit larger heads as well. Speaking of larger heads, I get asked to do dimensions and depth. So I did measure this before, but basically you have a 20 millimeter depth. Is a little bit deeper on this edge, but for where the center baffle point is, your depth is 20 meters. Now, when you look at the pad width and height, I already know it, but I like doing it on the camera anyway. So basically you're going to have, right when it touches, it should be about 45 millimeters, right on the edge. And then on your height, you have 65, I believe. 65 millimeters. I'm doing a little bit of touching on the pad, so I think 65 is right on the money. Really large pad. They're fairly deep. They're not crazy deep, but I don't like them pads going too thick because it does hurt sound quality. So I think it's a good balance, and I think a lot of people will be comfortable wearing this. On that note, for pad quality, if you wear glasses, you are good to go with the HS65 lineup. It uses memory foam. It has a leatherette exterior. It's a hybrid pad. So this is really, really soft, smooth sport fabric. It's not as like athletic feeling as the SteelSeries pad, but it's much more breathable than leatherette, so I love that. So it's great for long-term gaming. And because it's memory foam with that softer pad material, it's very compliant around glasses frames. So if you're concerned about wearing these for a long time and or playing with glasses at the same time, you're good to go on comfort for long gaming sessions and short. It's also followed by a fairly light clamp force. Because these are light, these are on the lighter to medium side for clamp. So again, you can wear these for a really long time. And just to give you a comparison, the HS55 Core, or wireless Core, that one is $100, and that one has a stronger clamp, as does the Black Shark X, the Barracuda X that came out from Razer, the 2022 edition, and the HyperX Cloud Core Wireless. All in that $100 wireless price range. This is on the lighter end for clamp force. The only ones that are comparable are the Nova 1s and 3s.
So now I'm talking on the Corsair HS65 wireless mic, and let's be real, it's not the best sounding microphone. It's heavily artifacted, there's some compression going on, and it's just not that clear. And it's actually not because of the microphone. The mic itself is pretty good. As you will soon hear on the HS65 Surround, the USB version, which uses the exact same microphone. What's holding this back is the wireless transmitter, because Corsair is not using the slipstream wireless technology that you find in their higher end headsets like the HS80 and above. Not all, but a lot of models above. But that's really what's doing it. It's causing some artifacting and compression because it has less bandwidth to work with. Now, the other interesting thing is the side tone is extremely weak on this, whereas it's great on the HS65 Surround. So I think that's a bug that will likely get fixed in a future firmware, because it's kind of muddy, unclear, and very faint even at max volume, whereas when I turn the side tone up to the same setting on the Surround version, the side tone is much better. So if you need a really strong side tone, I would consider either going with the HS65 Surround or the HS80, at least at the time of this review. That's where it stands. So now let's hear this one. And now I'm talking on the HS65 wired version. This is the Surround version for $70. Obviously the microphone sounds much better. I'm not constrained by the wireless dongles, so that's to be expected. Even though they have the same mic, you can hear a big difference in sound quality. Now both models have a flip to mute microphone, so you could do that and you won't hear anything. The wireless also has a mute button on it, and both of them work. Regardless of, if you're flipped to mute, you're muted, but you can tap instead and kill the mic sound that way, which is pretty slick. But overall, works pretty well. The microphone's not bad. I do want to show you the HS80 in wireless mode, though. All right, now I'm talking on the Corsair HS80. This wireless mic is class leading. I mean, for under $150, I've never heard a headset have a better sounding microphone than this, and this is better than some headsets' wired microphones. Corsair has always been a leader, in my opinion, as far as overall microphone performance goes,
but I did want to show you what's possible using the slipstream technology. It basically has a higher polling rate or sampling rate of the transmitter, a lot more bandwidth to work with, and that's part of what you're paying for, because on the HS80, even though it's a little bit more money, you're actually losing Bluetooth as well. So you're paying more for the wireless performance, the microphone, and overall slight increase in sound quality.
Now, just for an honest and unbiased review, this is what I sound like on the Razer Barracuda X 2022 edition. Honestly, I think this microphone executes this price point just a little bit better. Hilariously, the Barracuda X has a better sounding mic than the Barracuda and Barracuda Pro, which are double the price of this one. So this is kind of an anomaly in the Barracuda lineup as far as like bang for your buck goes, but I did want to show you how a competitor's mic sounded, with regards to how it stacks up against Corsair.
So now it's time to talk about sound quality. Obviously, one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to audio products. And the Corsair HS65, look, it's a $120 gaming headset on the wireless version and $70 for wired. So don't expect audiophile level sound. Most headsets, gaming headsets, don't really approach that level. So they're all going to have some kind of flaw in some way. So I'm going to describe the sound signature. We'll talk about how it measures and then how to EQ it, and talk about something that makes it unique. So the bass is emphasized, and the sound of the headset generally is bass boosted with a dash of mud. The bass does bleed into the mid-range, so if you are used to a flatter sounding headset that you've used in the past, or headphone, this is going to sound bass heavy and a little bit muddy and unclear as a result, because it's boosting the frequencies in the mid-range as well. It makes it sound heavier, heftier, if you will, less clean, less crisp. It doesn't pair well with the treble because the treble is not really boosted enough to compensate. So even though this is a V-shaped sounding headset, think of it as a darker sounding headset that has a decent amount of bass to it, not overly bright or analytical. Now, the only headsets that really start giving you a flatter sound is when you get into like the HS80 or some of the SteelSeries Nova products, which some people don't like the sound because it doesn't sound as impactful or engaging for gaming. Gaming headsets are hard because if you're using it just for gaming, the V-shape isn't a bad thing. The boosted bass helps with immersion and explosions, but for music listening, it can color the sound. It doesn't sound the way you'd expect it to, like vocals might be recessed, or guitars, they sound less plucky, less airy. If you translate that sound profile into gaming, if you're playing an open world game and you want to hear the sound of rain or birds in the distance or the airy sound of the wind going through the trees, a headset like this that's a little bit darker is going to add some weight to that. The rain is going to sound like the drops are larger or they're hitting a softer object, whereas a brighter sounding headset sounds more crisp and light and spacious. So I don't know if you can see where I'm going with this, but if you're playing a racing game, I think some people will like the stock sound profile. And we'll talk about IQ and software like ICUE, that's Corsair's audio program for setting all this up, doing firmware updates, etc. But the default profile sounds that way. I say that because you can't customize the EQ for PlayStation. So even though this works with PlayStation, both the USB variants and the USB dongle right here, this little adapter, all the EQ settings are basically stuck on your PC. So you're stuck with that sound signature out of the box. It's still imaged well. I could still hear footsteps fine playing games like Call of Duty, and that sound signature is great for games like Gran Turismo. However, if you wanted something that sounds more competitive or sharper, then I'd consider something on the higher end side, whether it's the Corsair HS80, which has a better sound signature stock, works really well for PlayStation, or believe it or not, the Trick. So there is the HS65 wireless core. This is a $100 headset that has Bluetooth. I'll do a comparison. I'm getting ahead of myself. But the HS55 core version, which effectively has less features on PC than the new HS55, has built-in EQ profiles that are built into the headset, and tapping the volume button cycles through it. So if you are playing on PlayStation, you may want to consider the HS55 core, because even though it's a little bit less comfortable than these, you have a more agreeable sound setup because you can toggle through different presets. The core doesn't have any way to customize it in IQ software. It just shows the headset. You can do firmware updates, and that's it. This is much better for PC gaming. So I want to show you what it measures like, and then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the pink line represents how the headset measures, and you can see this bass is emphasized, and it carries all the way up past 200 hertz, which is where that heft comes from. you have a massive dip in the mid-range, which you can see here at the 600 hertz. Then it slowly staggers its way back up and falls back down on the upper treble range, never quite hitting the upper treble that most people are expecting on a gaming headset. So I did do a tune. I'll show you how to do this in a moment. And you can see on the blue line compared to the Harman curve, which is kind of like a target curve that a lot of people prefer. This is, again, a baseline tuned to your own liking. But you can see I greatly reduced the bass, so it's more in line with the Harman curve. And I increased some treble energy without making it sound too sharp. On PC, this sounds much better to me. It's much more competitive on gaming and much more enjoyable for music. And I still could enjoy it for movies. I think you might want to boost the bass even more if you want the explosions to sound even better. But those were all the changes I had to do. So now I'm going to show you how to EQ that real quick on iQ. So I did 0 decibels at 32 hertz, plus 1 decibels at 64, 125 I did -2, at 250 I did -1, 500 +1, at 1K I did +2, 2K was +3, 4K was +2, and then 8K I increased to only +1 decibel, and then I did +2 at 16,000 hertz or 16K. That helped. I like that sound profile, and pressing in on the volume wheel toggles through all of the iQ presets. I actually liked the movie theater profile a lot too. I think out of the box, that was my favorite preset without messing with anything. Now, there is something called SoundID personalization. I mentioned what SonarWorks sent me the wireless version. Super thankful for that. So SoundID is designed to take some of the guesswork out of EQ, because what I like or what I measure is likely different than what you like or what even a different system might measure. So this is kind of to serve as a baseline. Now what SoundID does is you pick several different tracks to listen to. It loops it over and over. I recommend trying it more than once, especially if you're not happy with the result. But you pick a genre. It's going to play 2 versions of that genre or a song or track, and you're going to do an A/B listening test. You pick A if you think A sounds better, and you pick B if B sounds better, and there'll be differences in sounds. To some people, they may not hear a difference on certain parts, so you can say, I can't tell. Once you've gone through several of these questions, it now builds a custom sound profile for you that, when enabled, should make the headset sound closer to your liking. Now, I listen to these in a critical level. I'm very particular on how I want certain things to sound for me. So while I did think it improved it, it often went from dark and muddy to overly harsh or grainy sounding in the 3 to 4K range. That was just it. I prefer the SoundID profile more, but overall, I still prefer custom EQ. So if you don't want to mess with that, try SoundID. It might get better. Now, SoundID in April of this year is going to have an update on iQ where you actually get a listening test, and that's going to further enhance the tunability. So I'll probably do a follow-up video down the road, because that's kind of where a lot of these future products are going, is measuring what your head response is like and what you like to custom tune it. That's honestly what makes the HS65 special, because you can use SoundID. I absolutely love that feature. So definitely mess with it. I'm going to play a real quick clip that's going to show you the difference of output for what the computer is sending to the headset with it on and off, because what I hear is going to be different than what's measured, but you can still hear a drastic difference in the way the music sounds. Now, both the HS65 wireless and HS65 surround support Dolby audio, which is in addition to Dolby Atmos, because Atmos pretty much works on most headsets as long as the sample rate is right. These both run 48 kilohertz at 16 bits, and there's 2 different modes. You can select 2-channel mode or 8-channel mode. And I found that whether you had 2-channel mode or 8-channel mode selected, the Dolby audio option made the same sound impact on the headset, which basically created a lot of echo and reverbs in a very wide expanse of a soundstage, but not in a necessarily accurate or cohesive way. It might be fun for certain, single-player games, so I suggest experimenting with it. Some people do like 7.1, but even on games like Call of Duty, which does support multi-channel audio, when you enable it, which on the new update is Windows default instead of stereo, Whether I had the Dolby Audio toggle on or off, I didn't hear a change. So I'm not sure how much of the translation is getting lost from toggling all of these modes. What was consistent though is it did add reverb. It did make it more difficult for me to pinpoint footsteps. And although it sounds fun with certain games, I wouldn't be using it on FPS. So I do want to say it supports Dolby Audio. It supports Dolby Atmos, which obviously requires a separate license. That's not included with these, but I found the stereo mode to be more than fine for all different genres, whether it's FPS or not. So now, while I think the HS65 is a great option at this price range, there's a few things to consider. If you want the improved mic performance because you're on wireless and you don't care about Bluetooth, I strongly suggest just going for the HS80. Even though it retails for $150, it often goes on sale from $120 to $140, bringing it more in line. So again, if you don't need that Bluetooth function, maybe the HS80 is a better choice, especially if you don't have a very large head, because this doesn't fit massive heads as well as the 65 does. If you're console gaming, this is where it gets tricky. If you do both, you can use all of these on console and PC. The HS55 has less features, wireless core, I should say, the core version, not the standard HS55 wireless that just came out. The core has built-in EQ presets, making it more fun for me on PlayStation, and still usable on PC because you can always use Dolby Atmos or your own custom EQ software. You just can't use IQ. The other one to consider that I actually liked a lot last year was the Razer Barracuda X 2022 edition. The microphone is actually better than the 65 in wireless form. It's a stronger clamp force, even though I like this pad material more. It's very, very comfortable heat-wise. The Barracuda X squeezes your head more firmly. You still get aluminum construction, obviously still available in white, and it still has Bluetooth, but what's cool about this one is you can actually customize the EQ via the Razer Synops app on your phone. So you don't have to worry about slowing down your computer because Synops is a memory hog. So I think it just comes down to where you're going to play with it the most and what's most important. I was confused because Corsair has so many headsets in this price range now, especially when you consider their older stuff. But think of it this way, 55 core for a console, and then step up a little bit more money to get the 65 version, which to me is the logical upgrade path. The HS55, the non-core, is also 100. It's better than the core version, even though it's the same price, if you're playing on PC, because now you get all the sound customization stuff you can do in IQ. So I was talking a mile a minute. I have so much I had to say about this headset. So I know the video is long for a fairly affordable headset, but there's just too much to cover. They have so many features, and I think that's a great sign of where this market is going, because headsets do so much more than just plug in and play now. I really like the HS55. I don't like the voice prompts. Disable that in IQ because her voice is crazy loud. But you can change the battery timeout function, microphone gain if you find yourself too soft. So there's a couple extra bells and whistles. Overall, they were great. I think for PC players looking for a good, affordable option, the HS65 is great, and it's very competitive in this price. And I already explained how it stacks up to the others. So hopefully you found this review helpful. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the content. I'd like to see you in a future video. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you next time.